Hey everybody, happy Monday.
Happy Monday everyone. In this video we got something cool for you today.
About two of the coolest fish of all time. Two of my absolute favorites, the pea puffer versus the sparkling gourami.
So we get this question a lot, and that is, what type of fish can I have as a centerpiece fish for a smaller, maybe even a nano fish tank? And these two are great options, and so we thought it might be good to compare and contrast the two to help you make a better decision. By the way, we have species profiles for both of these fish if you want to learn a lot more about them in the description below, so you can check those out and get a lot more information.
Plus, I think there's an added bonus. What you are going to get in this video is a lot of B-roll footage of two very cute fish.
So I thought it'd be a good idea just to go through the basics of each fish first before we get into some of their subtle differences. And one of the first things, of course, is the size. The nice thing is they're roughly the same size. So again, if you've got that smaller tank, maybe a 5 or a 10 gallon or above, these can be great fish. They're going to top out at around an inch or so. And so at least in terms of that, they have a very similar size, which will fit in those smaller tanks.
Now for activity level, they're really relatively the same. They both like to kind of stay in a standard little position and just kind of hover around in certain little areas, but then also go through quick little spurts of energy across the tank. Very similar activity level. You get kind of the best of both worlds for them.
Another thing to consider is stocking for both of these fish. If you are going to keep them, it's best, especially if you only have a 5 gallon or so, to just keep one. That is your little centerpiece fish with some personality. As you get into larger tanks, like maybe the 10 gallon or certainly the 20 gallon, now you can begin to think about keeping multiples. But for both of these fish, it is best if you keep one male with multiple females, or just keep females. That's going to reduce the likelihood that they're aggressive towards one another. The nice thing is, for both of these fish, they generally aren't aggressive towards other fish. You just want to make sure that the fish that you are stocking are appropriate for your pea puffer or your sparkling gourami. Again, more on that in the species profiles in the description below.
Funny little side note, for my pea puffers, I have a male and a female, and they take turns being the boss.
And if you are considering tank mates, I think for both of them, one of the things you want to think about is having fish that are a little bit less active and not going to stress out either your sparkling gourami or your pea puffer, because they do tend to move a little bit slower.
Another similarity is, where do they inhabit the tank? Are they at the top, the bottom, middle? They're relatively the same. They like to cover all areas of the tank from the bottom to the top, although I would have to say the sparkling gouramis probably do spend a little bit more time up top.
Now the water parameters for both of these fish are pretty much what you would find in your average fish tank. So as long as you can get somewhere around neutral in terms of your pH, we keep both of these fish at a pH actually closer to 8, they do fine. But if you're somewhere between 6.8, maybe 7.0 and around 8.0, they're both going to do relatively well. General and carbonate hardness for us is around 10 to 12 degrees. For both of these fish, if you're somewhere between 4 or 5 and maybe 10 to 12, you're probably going to be okay there as well.
Now what about the tank scape? How do you scape a tank for either of these fish? I would say generally the same. My tank is very heavily planted because they can have a lot of moments of shyness and they like to kind of chill out, hide around, but they also like to swim around. So I give them a lot of variety, a lot of open space to move around, have their little territories, and a lot of hiding places and a lot of floating plants, especially for the gouramis that like to hang out up top. And for the tank, also keep in mind that neither fish really likes heavy flow. So choose a filter that does not have a whole lot of output blowing them all around the tank. Now I think it's about time that we talk about the differences. There are very key differences in these two fish. First of all, their personalities. I would have to say that the pea puffer wins hands down almost against any fish for personality, especially for its little size. And then there's little googly eyes that go in different directions. And whenever I go by the tank, my pea puffers, they know me, think they love me, and they watch me. Whereas the sparkling gouramis, not so much. They kind of care more about their clan, their posse, than they really care about me.
Now, when it comes to the looks, however, at least in my personal opinion, the sparkling gourami wins that battle because of they're really pretty. They've got pretty blue eyes. They've got a lot of iridescence in their body, something that the pea puffers lack. Although the pea puffers do look absolutely cool and they're very interesting looking, I give a slight edge, personal preference, to the sparkling gourami on this one.
Now for another huge difference is, what do they eat? They eat very different things. My pea puffers eat snails, almost exclusively snails. I know a lot of people get away with frozen foods like bloodworms. Mine have always been snails. Whereas the sparkling gouramis, will eat generally anything. They eat flake food, they eat baby brine, but keep in mind, when you're talking pea puffers, if you do feed them snails, keep in mind it's not a very tidy tank. You're going to be spending a lot more time keeping your tank tidy because of all the snail shells.
One last thing to consider is if at some point you decide you want to breed either one of these fish, I find that the sparkling gouramis are a little bit easier to breed. Again, I actually show sparkling gouramis in the breeding process in the video in the description below. But if it's ever something you want to do, the sparkling gouramis are probably going to be a little bit easier for people to breed. So that was a quick rundown of the sparkling gourami versus pea puffer. Would love to hear from you in the comments section below. Do you have a preference? Which one do you like and why? Thanks for being here, and we'll see you in the next one.
Have a good week.